Hello all, welcome back to Shaving with Peg Leg. Appreciate y'all being here. Thanks to the new subscribers. If it's your first time here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's free and I would appreciate it. Thank you. Alright guys, we're going to do a face shave today. I haven't used this in a while. The 34G with a feather blade. Second use on the blade. I just haven't used that razor in a while, so I figured what the heck, we'll throw a feather in it and give it a run across the face. So, HC&C, Hendrix Classic and Company, Southern Comfort. I have this in the drops, the scent your own, and I'll be using that for the aftershave and the balm. I've never drank Southern Comfort, but this is what it smells like. I'm all for it. I might have to put it on the bottle list. I'm not a big drinker anyways, but it smells really, really good. Okay. You know what? No pre-shave. I was going to do it, but I forgot it, and I was just going to reach over and get it, but you know what? The hell with it. Pre-shaves are nice, but you don't always need them. And Hendrix is super slick as it is. I'm using my Ever-Ready vintage Ever-Ready T100 boar brush. It's small. It's like an 18 or 20 mil. I think that's an 18. I'll measure it after we get done here. Throw it in the description. But the knot's good on it. It's super, super soft because it's vintage. It's been used over 70 years, probably 80 years maybe. It's been being used and it's super soft. And that's all you want from a brush, is for it to be soft. Wake them whiskers up. I love HC&C's top shelf base. Personally, I think it's my favorite base. I really do. This stuff just blooms when it gets water. It can be thirsty, but look at that. I mean, it just blooms up and it's so slick. Pete makes a great product. I'm going to use my mini trimmer. Get all those stragglers in line. Okay. Hope everybody's having a good day. Here we go. First pass with the grain. Just want to make sure it was tight. Yep, the feather does wake this razor up. And if you didn't know, 34G unscrews from the bottom. The top cap comes off. Like so. It's got the 3 posts. You got the center post that screws down and 2 other ones. You put the blade on the top cap, put the base of the razor on top of that, and then screw it down. If you didn't know. Yeah, this blade really wakes this razor up. This is a good razor. Everybody says it's a great beginner razor because of the aggression on it is so mild. But you know what? There are several razors out there just as good, if not better. And you know what? Most of them are cheaper. Although there is there is the Original Shave Company, I believe it's called, or Original Shave Store. I think it's the Original Shave Company. They still have the 34G, the gold version of this, on sale for like $42. And I keep looking at it, and I know, it's only gold. It's the difference between this and that one. But it just looks so damn pretty. I just want to order it. And it's like, no, I keep having to tell myself, no, you don't need it. It's just the gold version of that. You don't need it. It's the same damn razor. Still got quite a bit of hair because it is a mild shaver. We're going to have to do 3 passes today. Look at that, so beautiful. When you're not dropping it all over your smock. But that's the reason I wear it. Smells so good. Okay, October 11th, 1923. What happened October 11th, 1923? Quite a bit, actually. Actually, quite a bit. I want to read this to you because there's a lot of numbers here. All right. October 11, 1923. The German mark falls. Its value fell to the point where it took 10 billion German marks to equal 1 English pound, or 4 billion German marks to equal 1 American dollar. That is outrageous inflation. We have not seen inflation like that in our lifetimes. We have not seen that kind of inflation. All right. And this was all, and this is going to explain partially how Hitler came to power. Okay, you have to bear with me here. How the Allies, the victors of World War I, are partially responsible for Hitler coming to power. See, the victors, the Allies, we all heard about the Versailles Treaty, where they limited German military production, what they could have, what they could not have, tonnage of their warships, how big the warships could be and everything, and how they limited troop numbers, tank numbers, machine gun numbers, everything numbers. They could only have so much of this, so much of that. That's fine. That was to keep them in check, so that they didn't start another war. But what they also imposed upon Germany turned out to be hyperinflation, because the reparation demands were so high. In 1920 numbers, 1921 numbers, it was $80 billion is what reparations money was. And for a country that was in economic hard times, and the world was hitting economic hard times, heading towards them, that's a big ask. Big ask. And what it did is it caused inflation through the whole of Germany. It caused the price of goods to go up, the devaluation of the money to go down. the German government kept printing money to try and ease the inflation. And all it did was increase it, which we know now, just printing money just increases inflation because it makes the money you're printing less valuable. So they just kept printing money, trying to pay. And the countries that wanted reparations wanted German cash to pay for the damages of World War I, did not want German Reichmarks. They wanted foreign currency. They could have had pounds, they could have had, I don't know what the hell France had, francs. France had francs. It could have been anything. It could have been US dollars. They had to be paid in a foreign currency. It could not be paid in German Reichmarks, which, if it takes 10 billion of those to buy one English pound, or 4 billion to buy one American dollar, and you've got to pay back 80 billion, think about it. That's economic disaster in the writing. So this brings a little guy from Austria who enlisted in the German army and fought for the German army during World War I, brings him into the National Socialist Party. Well, they renamed it to the National Socialist Party. I won't go into all their names, and brings him to the forefront and leadership of it. He gets put in jail for 5 years because he tried to subvert the government and take over by force, and that failed. So he got 5 years in prison for it. Only served 8 months. Wrote his document, the Bible of the Third Reich, Mein Kampf. He writes that. Becomes very popular. His trial became very popular in Germany. It made all the headlines and and brought recognition to the National Socialist Party. So when he got out of jail, he went straight to the leadership of the National Socialist Party, started taking over, and started giving these fiery speeches that it was all the Allies' fault that Germany was in the position they were in, that you couldn't afford to feed your families, you couldn't afford anything because everything was so expensive. It was the Germans' government's fault for colluding with the Allies by agreeing to their terms and by devaluing the mark so that German people suffered. And he was promising, you elect me, I'll make the trains run on time, and I'll put a chicken in every pot. So you got hungry people out there demanding for action, and you got this guy saying, look, you put me in charge, I'll take over this government, I'll turn things around, I'll put a chicken in every pot that you put on the stove. Well, guess what? You're going to get votes. And he got voted to the Chancellery, and he eventually took over the Chancellery, and Hindenburg was the president, elected president. Hitler lost to Hindenburg when he ran for president, and he ended up in the Chancellery, ended up being head of the Chancellery, and there had to be a backdoor agreement backroom agreement with Hindenburg and the members of the Chancellery to put Hitler in power of the Chancellery to make him the Reichsmarshal, I think it was, and it was put him in charge of the Chancellery. And then when Hindenburg died, it left the door open for Hitler to step in and take power, and that's how Hitler came about. But anyways, going back to the economic woes, this is what led to Hitler coming into power. Okay. A loaf of bread in Berlin that cost around 160 marks at the end of 1922 cost 200 billion Reichmarks by late 1923. In 1 year, the price went from 160 marks to 200 billion for a loaf of bread that you and I can go buy for $1 or $2 down at the grocery store. How are families going to eat when a loaf of bread is 200 billion Reichmarks? By November 1923, one US dollar was worth 4,210,500,000,000 German Reichmarks. Yeah, 4,210,000,000,000 is what one US dollar was worth in 1923 in Germany, November. Tell me that some guy screaming at the top of his lungs at every speech he gives that the government's part of the problem, colluding with the Allies, the surrender was wrong, and if you put me in charge, I will put a chicken in every pot. when you can't buy $1 for $4 trillion break marks? Tell me that man's not going to get votes. So I say the Allies led to Hitler coming to power with their outrageous demands. I'm not saying they shouldn't have paid anything, but they made it so high. And when the world hit economic hardship with the crash, well, the United States stepped in and helped the German economy turn around a little bit with the Dawes plan. We loaned Germany money so that they could re-up their industry and everything and put people to work and lower prices and get costs down, and things could try to get back to normal. And then the Depression hit, and the U.S. said, well, guess what, we can't send you all that money anymore, and everything went like it did everywhere else. All right, against the grain. Those are some hard numbers, folks. Those are some hard numbers. What did I say it was? $2 billion to buy a loaf of bread in 1923, late 1923? Or 2 billion Reichmarks? Ooh, I still got hair. I'm gonna do a fourth pass. How about that? That will raise his miles, so I'm not worried about it. How do you feed your family, guys? How do you feed your family? I mean, back then, what average salary of like a factory worker was like, what, $20 a week? If a loaf of bread is 2 billion Reichmarks, what's a hunk of meat? What's milk? What's cheese? What's butter? So I'm saying, guys, the Allies, I've still got pickups to do. The Allies helped put Hitler in power with their outrageous demands. I'm not saying Hitler was a frickin' saint or anything. I'm just saying that your actions always have reactions. And that was the reaction of the German people to elect somebody that was promising to put a chicken in every pot. While the German communists were screaming that they would tear down the factory owners and make them pay, and that capitalism sucked, and everybody would get the same wage and the same pay and the same food and everything. But you got this other guy on the other side screaming, hey, guess what? I don't put chicken in your pot for dinner. You're going to have chicken tonight. Elect me. And we'll have chicken. Because the average person, even back then, was smart enough to know it wasn't the factory owners, the shop owners, or any other owner of anything that was causing the problems. They were stuck in the same position you were, cost of goods going up, so the price of their product had to go up. They were stuck in the same position. It wasn't the company's fault. Companies had nothing to do with it. It was the government's fault. It was the Allies' fault for their outrageous demands. And actually, when the Depression hit, Germany stopped paying the reparations. They couldn't afford it because they had too much internal going on, like every other country did. They could not afford to pay the reparations anymore, so they stopped paying it. But their yearly, monthly, whatever it was, payments at the time before that were so outrageous that they had to print money to meet the demand. And when they just printed money, all they did was drive the cost of everything up and the value of the mark down. Because they were stuck between a rock and a hard place trying to meet these payments, so that they didn't face other economic sanctions from the Allies, that none of their goods would be bought, and none of the goods would be sold to them. And actually, at one point, when things were tight, the British and French marched into the Rhineland and the German industrial area, and they took it over. And the German government called for all the workers in that area not to go to work, just to strike. Don't work. Don't feed the enemy. And it's stuff like that that just triggers people. I realize you want your money for the reparations, but all you're doing is triggering further revolt and pushing the country farther away from you. And guess what's going to happen? You get a Hitler. But they didn't know that at the time, I guess. But sadly, we all found out. But when I was reading that article, Gentleman John Allen Block, there's absolutely nothing. Cold and wet. Even on the neck that I went over, 4 or 5 times, nothing. There was, and I'm not BBS, I still got a little bit right here. This 99.9% gone, there's still a few hairs there, but that razor's just so mild, and you're not going to get it all. There's some razors are like that. I had that problem with the razor before. That's why I say the little $5-6 Concord I have actually shaves me better than the $40 34C, because it gets everything. It's a little bit more aggressive, lighter weight, a lot cheaper. And it gives me a better shave. But anyways, which Hazel? Well, that's like U.S. Congress just recently, thank you Nancy Pelosi, did this. They just pushed through a multi-million-dollar aid budget for Florida because of the hurricane, to help Floridians get through the hurricane, to rebuild and everything. But they added a $12 or $13 billion rider onto the bill for Ukraine. That's what has screwed up our country, I think, more than these people, well, as much as these people being in Congress for 40, 45 years, is their ability to be allowed to add these riders onto it. It's like, they'll say, oh, so-and-so wouldn't vote for health care for the elderly. No, they didn't. Because you had a $15 billion rider attached onto it to help illegal aliens, to get them housing and Medicare and Medicaid and everything else. No. And that's the reason they vote against it. Because it's not the bill they're voting against, it's the rider. It's not fair to the American people. And I don't know if any other country does that. And if they do, shame on them. All right, Star Jelly. Oh, I don't know if you see. Second drop. mix it all together. On the face it goes. That's like the United, like I said, the Dawes plan. They were helping Germany. They were trying to get Germany out of the hole they were in because the people were freaking starving. The U.S. stepped in and said, "Okay, look, we'll help you out. We'll get you some money." HC&C ball. We'll get you some money so that you can get out of this hole and get your people fed. And then the Great Depression hit, and we just couldn't do it. Everybody was hurting in the Great Depression. We couldn't send them the money anymore, and they fell hard. And Hitler said, right in. Because that's what happens. People take advantages of situations like that, and they step up and they get in power because you're going to get a chicken in every pot. And that's how they get the vote. All right, anyways, guys, I appreciate you sticking around for that. It was my normal this day in history type thing. It was just more or less I saw that and the mark fell so hard and worth so little. I've always heard the stories that in the Great Depression in Germany, it took a wheelbarrow full of money to buy a loaf of bread, and actually it took more like a dump truck full of money to buy a loaf of bread. It's sad what happened. Anyways, we cannot ever let that happen again around the world. We cannot let that happen again. A depression like that. It would be devastating. Anyways, thank you all for joining me for today's shave. It wasn't BBS, but it's a good shave. It's pretty damn close. The 34C, Merkur 34C, good razor. Better with a sharp blade in it, like the feather, than a milder blade. I think this base is my favorite. The top shelf base of HC&C, and the Southern Comfort smell. Oh, scent is awesome. I'll put the notes and the ingredients and everything in the description box. Alright guys, thank you very much for joining me. Thanks to the new people for being here. Don't forget my affiliate link. When it hits $25, I'll get a $25 gift card to the razor company, give it away to you guys. Don't forget to check out the 4 links I'll post of sites I follow, YouTubers I follow, and if you're not subscribed to them, go ahead and give them a follow. Just trying to boost everybody up to 1,000, guys, with a little bit of help that I can give. I do what I can. Alright guys, I appreciate y'all being here. Thank you very much. And with that, I will say, done with the babbling fat guy in the camera. You're in the chair next. Happy shaves out there, guys.